up, Cheapo here. Today we're going to learn how to put a spring over lift on a Samurai for cheap. So, here's what you got. Here's the stock back end and axle setup. You got your axle, and you got your leaf springs going underneath the axle. Now we want to get the springs right here to be on top of the axle. Spring over lift. What that'll do is that'll lift you up and get you a lot more clearance for the axle, because if you're running these little tires, you got about 7 inches. And that's not, you know, if you're driving. So if you roll over something about 6 inches, you're going to smash your axle back there. And then, also with the spring over lift, what you can do is you can slap on bigger tires. I got the little, shit, I don't even know how big these things are. They're not very tall. They're the stock rims. Over here, I've got the front end done. I got some fucking 31s up the front. So my front axle is going to be, or is already, way off the ground. And I don't have to worry about, you know, smashing shit. You can get through further up the trail. So there's basically, I don't know, 5, I guess, 4 or 5 things you got to do. First off, springs over axle. That's the easy one. Second off, you have to get extended brake lines, because now instead of your axle being here and your caliper being here, you know, it's going to be a lot lower. So you get these, you put your brake lines on, and then you also need a Z-bar or a, what is it, drop arm, steering drop arm. I happen to have a Z-bar because when you drop it, it's usually a straight bar, so it's just up at a big old angle like that, and it doesn't like that. So you need your spring over, you need your brackets to mount the springs to the axle. You need your Z-bar, you need your extended brake lines. Also, you're gonna need these little fuckers. Drive shaft extension, the little blue thing there. Just because you're coming down at more of an angle. And you know, everything needs to line up. So basically, what I did to get these in, this one's easier to see back here. This right here, the U-joint that mounts to the transfer case. And you just gotta get, I think it was like 2 12s. The original bolts were 12s, take them off. This telescopes right here. So you push it back a little bit, throw in the spacer, push it forward, and these in the kit happen to be 1/2 inch nuts and bolts. So you just bolt those on real nice and easy. As long as you can get a fucking wrench in there. So, then, to get the old brake lines off, you got 2 in the back for me. You take these little clips off, and they basically just sit in there like that. You just get a screwdriver up in this spot, knock them out. And then just, you know, don't worry about your brake fluid just bleeding out. You're gonna have to bleed your brakes anyway, so just shit gets everywhere. And you deal with that later. Now what I had to do is cut my brackets, and I'll show you how to do all that on the back end. Now before I forget, you do have to put your wheel, you kind of pretty much have to put your wheels on and then turn them hard right and hard left, so that way you can install your brake lines in a way. I'm gonna kill that fucking dog one day. So you put your brake lines in a way that they're not going to rub on the tires, because well, if you do that, all of a sudden you're just going to stop on the brakes and nothing's going to happen, and then you go off the edge of the cliff. And then who cares how high your truck is? Alright, here's what it looks like, if you can see that shit. I got my body and frame on jack stands. I got the axle sitting on 2 jacks. Those jack stands actually aren't carrying any weight, just because I'm going to have to adjust the height of the axle and move them around. But in case they fall, you know, jack stands are there. Now, you got to disconnect your shock. That'll be that bolt right there. It's a 17 on mine. Do that first. And then the brackets that hold the springs to the axle, take those nuts off. The big old U-bolts, those are 17 as well. And then it's gonna look like this. What I got over here, you know, I kind of mocked it up so it looks the same. If you take them off, get all your nuts there. Hit it with something. And it comes off. You got your U-bolts. You got your bump stop, that just sits on top of the axle. Used to. Now it goes in the trash. Then you got your shock just hanging, which is what you want. So, these up here, they're about midship. They're like the forward mounts for the rear springs. They have a sleeve on the inside of there, and then rubber around it, and then this steel. And that sleeve almost always rests onto this bolt. I cannot turn that bolt. I can move that nut though. That doesn't mean shit, because I'm not going to be able to get this thing out, because the sleeve is around it and it's stopping it right here. So what I'm going to have to do, take out these shackles. I forget which side it is. I'm going to have to, yeah, take off the 2 bolts on this side. I don't know if you can see that. There's 14s. And then move this whole piece out so I can drop the spring. Right now it's like that, so I can drop it that way. Shove the axle in, and then bring the spring back up, and then mount the axle underneath the spring, or the spring over the axle. So I want to wrestle with that. I'll check back in a little bit. So here we go. Got my axle sitting on the jacks. Got my leaf springs hanging down in the back. Now what I'm planning on doing is I'm going to lower, let's see if I can do this. Here's the axle, right? And there's the springs. I'm basically going to have to go under. That way I can bring it back up. It's essentially just going to involve lowering these jacks and then just, you know, basically trying to put it on the ground as far back as I can. And then pulling the springs out as far wide as I can to clear them, you know. Pretty simple in concept, hope it works. Alright, here's the back end done. Not sure if you can see that too well. But this top plate, let's try that side. Yeah, there it is. That top plate that's sitting right on top of here was originally flipped over and on the underside of the right axle. So it's got the, you know, the little arm for the shock sticking out, so it went like that. And then flipped it over, there it is. Now I did have to drill a hole in the middle for whatever that is, the lining, you know, screw pack that screws these together. You can see, hopefully. There's the original one, empty. There's the new one that I drilled with the screw that goes through here. There it is. Put these on nice and fucking tight. Welded. These are your spring perches. They came with the kit. And I welded straight to the old fucking, I don't know, mount for the springs that was on the old axles. I was already on the axle. And there's kits that you weld to the axle, but I've heard the axle walls are really thin, you can burn up fluid and just burn straight through. So I chose a perch that will weld straight to the original mounts. That way you don't get too much heat on the actual axle. So that's that. Supposedly, when you do this, I used my old shocks. Supposedly they're too short. Looks like I got plenty of travel, but I mean shit, if not, I'll replace them later, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm only going to change shit till when I have a problem with it. What did happen though, is I do have some pretty dramatic angles in my drive shaft. But it spins freely, and it doesn't kink, you know, on 180 turns. So it'll spin freely. But what I might do to compensate for that is where the in the back where your springs mount, I might put a shackle in the rear, so give it, you know, a bit more of an upward angle. That would take some of the angle out of that, maybe a little bit out of that one too. But that's what I'm talking about is over here, back of the spring. This is the stock one. Just bring it down a couple inches, and instead of the axle being perfectly straight, it'll bring it down a little bit and it'll angle up, take away some of that big old fucking drive axle angle. Yeah, when it was welded, I made sure the gas tank was out, drained it. Actually no, dropped it out full, but then had to drain it to get the fucking thing back in. It was full and heavy. I think that's fucking just about it. Yeah, now I just gotta bleed my brakes. And at some point, fuck around with the that line that's coming down right there. That's the bracket that used to mount to the body. But since I put a 3-inch body lift on it and it's got the spring over, that piece isn't going to mount to the original hole, so I'll just, you know, find a place to hold that. That's the handbrake cable. Those are my other brake lines. That's fucking really it, man. The shit took a long time, but there's not that many, it's not hard shit. Just a bunch of little pain in the ass things, you know. Like these, getting these fucking things in. I didn't have a 17mm deep socket, so I used a dog bone, and that was a pain in the ass. I should have just gone and fucking bought a deep socket, but, you know, did it all with hand tools. Fucking 5 jack stands, 2 or 3 jacks, bottle jacks, and there she is. I'll try and put it in a before and after picture, before the spring over and the body lift. Put a little piece of shit up there just for fun. And she sits, fuck, maybe like 8-9 inches higher. So she's pretty tall on the 31s. I'll do it, see it.